to episode 3 of the MMG podcast. I am Chris, and I am without Go Cubs this episode. He is at a music festival, but I am going to move forward with the podcast anyway. I had a decision whether or not to either film this or film the Survivor podcast, and that's always going to be with Go Cubs. So I thought, like, okay, I can do this and get it out of the way, and it'll just be with me. So no additional commentary other than my own, but that's okay. I'm excited to do a solo podcast, see how I do with it for the first. Well, not the first time. I've done it with the NFL predictions, but that was with more visuals. This time, I am doing this with no other visuals other than what I'm reading off the screen myself. Yeah, you guys will just be seeing this screen the whole time, or you guys are just listening on SoundCloud or just looking away right now. So that's I'm gonna have to just say everything. Yeah, I'm just doing a trail of thought right now in my mind of how I'm gonna be working this, but I'm looking forward to this. So now today, the reason why I want to do this podcast is that I want to do a little bit of a recap of the 2017 NFL Draft. Another exciting year, another fun draft, and it seems there's a lot of optimism. I mean, there always is, but this seems like a different year of, like, every team seems like they're not going to go 0-16 type of optimism. Like, there's going to be some excitement in the season for all 32 teams. And it's all 32 teams also have some sort of storyline that's worth following, even if it seems kind of dull. I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting things to take away from what happened last week and from this entire off season. I'll talk about the first round, and we'll go pick by pick. I'll give my analysis of at least why I think. I'm not a draft expert, but I will at least give what I see as what could be a good pick, and why I'll go off of why I've been hearing a lot, but I also will preface the fact that we really do not know what's going to happen with these players. I mean, anyone that you draft, there's no way to know if they're going to succeed or not. You just know what they did in college, and you see what they have achieved to this point. But then going to the pros is a whole different type of game, and I know there's a good amount of the time that the experts are right, but there's also a good amount of the time that the experts are completely and utterly wrong, and they'll factor in, what an injury that could change the course of that player's career. They'll factor in maybe personal things that happen to the player that will completely that ends up ruining their career and just ending it altogether, kind of like what happened to Johnny Manziel. And then you have players that just cannot match what they did in college and to what they're doing in the NFL. Like, they're just not as good. And they'll only be remembered for what they did in college, and be known as the draft busts, as we like to call them. But we don't. I also don't want to be too, like, critical of these players too, because what just happened to them and 253 other guys and many undrafted guys is that they're getting an opportunity to pursue their dreams, and that's something that's awesome for them. And for a lot of them, there's a good amount in both the draft and that also those that have got undrafted that got signed, that that they came from nothing and to now be in the NFL, possibly earning millions and millions of dollars. That's an incredible feat, and you have to be excited for every single one of these guys in that sense. So anyways, that whole thing was a side discussion. So I'll talk about the first round. We'll talk about some notable picks that happened throughout the draft as well, and it'll give a little bit of how I see the power rankings, I guess, in each conference. We're gonna split it up by conference because I feel like doing a whole 32 ranking all the teams. I don't think it's worth it at this point. But we're gonna just jump right into this right now. We're gonna start with the very first pick in the draft. That was Myles Garrett out of Texas A&M, defensive end. He was the consensus Jesus consensus number one overall pick since February, pretty much, or even since the end of the college football season. It seems like many people considered him to be one of the more unbelievable athletes to come out of college. And a lot of I haven't heard a lot of comparisons with the player, with Garrett, but I've just heard that he is like a once in a lifetime guy, and the Browns were gonna look bad if they did not pick them. And the day of, and weeks prior as well, there were rumors that they might take Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback out of North Carolina, over Garrett, because they really like Trubisky and they've been having years and years of quarterback issues that they need to solve somehow. But one, that would have been reaching for a quarterback, and this was not a strong quarterback class. But and skipping Garrett would have been just a huge mistake because you need that pass rusher. You need a dominant player. You need a face of that franchise. And now I look at Myles Garrett, and he's now the face of the Cleveland Browns. And I mean, if I were the Browns, I'd be pumped because he just, based on the tape that I've seen, he looks explosive and just he looks awesome. The way that he just gets around, like just beats the offensive lineman and then just tackles sacks the quarterback rather. He just has the speed to him. It's just he just seems like an all around awesome player, and luckily the Browns did not fall for the hype of Trubisky. And I'm not trying to say that Trubisky is not a good player because we won't know, but you can't skip on Garrett unless you got like some sort of trade haul. You're able to trade down in the draft. You should have taken Garrett number one, and that's what they did. So I think it's a franchise player. I'll talk more about the Browns a little bit later once we finish up with their 3 first-round picks. Then came the 49ers at number 2. And there were rumors circulating for weeks that they wanted to trade down. It was very reminiscent of rumors that I think we saw last year with the Titans and the Browns wanting to trade down. They ended up doing so, getting the Rams and Eagles moved up to grab quarterbacks. Well, it happened again, but not the way you would expect. I was thinking maybe the Browns would trade up to get Trubisky so that way they get both their franchise quarterback and the best player in the draft, pretty much, or one of the greatest pass rushers that have come out of college, apparently. But in a surprise move, it was the Bears. The Bears were picking number 3. They moved up to number 2, gave up. I'm gonna have to look up the terms real quick, but they gave up a bunch of draft picks. I didn't really understand it. The Chicago gave up their first round. They flipped picks, the 2 and the 3, and they gave the 49ers a 3rd and a 4th round selection and a 3rd round selection in 2018. That is a large trade, considering that you are just moving up a spot, and basically a lot of stuff came out of afterwards. I'll get to that. But at this moment when I saw that happen, I was just like, all right, that's weird. But the first thing that went into my mind was that the 49ers probably were telling the Bears that there was a lot of competition happening and a lot of competition for that number 2 pick, and that the Bears were like, all right, no, we need to trade up. We need to get our guy. Now, at the time, I was thinking Solomon Thomas. Either that, which is the defensive end from Stanford, or Jamal Adams, because I know he was getting a lot of hype. The safety out of LSU. I thought it was going to be one of those two. I just thought it had to be a defensive player of some kind. Because I was also thinking maybe someone on offense they felt like was great. But I was never thinking a quarterback. I was thinking maybe a running back, but they also had a great running back last year in Jordan Howard, so I thought that was weird too. So overall, I was really just confused when they came onto the stage and announced that the Bears had picked quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. So this is the guy that was possibly going to go number one overall. But the Browns did not make that mistake. But he ended up going second overall to the Bears, who traded up to get him. And this is where I felt like things got weird, because for what happened earlier in March, signing Mike Glennon to a nice contract, and he was dubbed the starter for the season, and that has not changed. They're saying that he's going to remain the starter, even though they have now drafted Trubisky. But now, what Glennon looked like he was going to be kind of a long-term addition to the team, maybe, to now maybe only being around for a year or two. He's good. He sooner rather than later is now going to be going back to being the backup to a potential franchise quarterback in Trubisky. And there's also a lot of people that are just confused with reaching for the quarterback. Again, this was not a strong quarterback class, so going for Trubisky at number 2 was a little surprising, but at the same time, you also have to factor in, if Trubisky truly is the guy, and the Bears really have a lot of confidence in him, and they really like them, or like him rather, I can't really fault them for going after him. Where I do fault them, though, is they're not telling fellow members of their franchise that they're going to draft Trubisky, because he apparently they apparently did not fill in the head coach John Fox. So I'm talking about general manager Brian Pace now. Pace did not tell head coach John Fox that he was going to pick Trubisky until hours before. Why do that? You have 3 months, 4 months of evaluation after the season's over. And you're doing evaluations all throughout the entire year, and you're trying to decide what the best thing to do for your franchise, what player is supposed to, and you don't even tell the head coach of your team who you are picking at number 3, and it ended up being number 2. The whole thing just baffles me, and I think Bears fans should be open-minded to the idea of Trubisky being picked, and maybe he might actually do well for the Chicago Bears, and we will completely forget any fault that Pace had in Chicago. But this does not bode well for their team, to the idea that it was really just Pace and maybe the owner that knew that the quarterback was going to be drafted, and not really anyone else until hours before. And not filling in Glennon, too. I mean, you left Glennon in the dust. He was apparently at the draft party when this pick was announced, and I believe the report was that he felt cheated on. And I don't blame him. That's really unfair to him. He thinks that he's going to change a franchise. He's going to be able to lead this franchise, and he might not have that long to do so. Because now he has the Bears quarterback in the future sitting on the bench behind him. So the whole thing is very confusing on the Bears' point of view, and many people are saying that now the Bears are the Browns from last year, but they're the 2017 version of the Cleveland Browns. I don't really understand that. I think the Bears are a lot better on defense than people think. It's still not great, but it's a little bit better. And again, they do have a better offensive line. They have a good running back, but there is still a lot of questions, and it's hard for me to see them winning a lot of games next year, just because of the reasons that I give. I just don't think that they had a great draft in general. But hey, we've always been proven wrong, right? But anyways, moving on to the third pick in the draft, and that was the 49ers. The Bears traded up, so the 49ers got to move down. And according to Peter King of the MMQB, which I almost say sometimes the MMQB podcast by accident. Um, but he ended up being in the 49ers draft room, and very fun article, very insightful article into a team's draft room on the day of the draft. And there were the 49ers did not really think that they were going to pick Trubisky, but I forget who it was, but there was at least one of the major personnel guys in there, or it could have actually been General Manager John Lynch, who said that, I think the Bears might pick Trubisky. But I don't think it was Lynch, but I think it was someone else. But they that name did come out in the 49ers draft room in terms of who the Bears might pick. But for the most part, they felt it was going to be Solomon Thomas or it was going to be someone else. And it turns out that Trubisky was the right answer. So the 49ers got a treat, and they got to pick up Solomon Thomas. And again, it's a guy that it seems like he's going to be a great player. I remember watching the Sun Bowl when they played North Carolina, ironically. And I remember he had a very dominant performance in there. Again, I haven't really watched a lot of him, but I know that many people have graded him high in the draft, and he's definitely going to be a fun player to watch going forward. And now, moving on to the number 4 pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected running back Leonard Fournette of LSU. Now, Fournette, I believe last year, might have been considered a number 1 overall pick. That did not happen. But I mean, I think he didn't really have that exciting of a year to warrant a number 1 overall pick. With that being said, though, how exciting for the Jaguars. And then, look, I've been trying to toot the horn for the Jaguars for last year, and obviously that didn't end up working out for them. I think that adding Leonard Fournette will keep the pressure off Bortles and let Fournette run the ball, and he has so much athletic ability to just break tackles and just run run down the middle and just kick ass. I think that he's going to be a very fun player for that franchise, and I hope for that franchise that they can get some wins this season. I think that adding Fournette was a big deal, and they have one of the most underrated defenses going into this season, by the way. The players that they added in Boye and Campbell, and Ramsey was one of the best quarterbacks in the league near the end of the year. Having him come back, there's a lot of excitement there, and and you still have Malik. Is it Malik Jackson? He was from the Denver Broncos. He had a pretty underrated season as well last year. They can all kick ass in that defense and get the team some wins. And if Leonard Fournette can carry that offense, and maybe Blake Bortles plays well, Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns, I don't know. I think the Jaguars have a chance. They may make the playoffs if it all comes together, but it has to come together. Really, that's what it is. But this is one of my favorite picks in the draft. I loved it. I loved both running back picks. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit later. And number 5 pick was the Tennessee Titans. Now, this pick was acquired by the team from the Rams in last year's big trade up. The Rams drafted Jared Goff, number 1 overall in the 2016 draft. And the Titans were able to take the pick that they got from the Rams and use it on a wide receiver, Corey Davis from Western Michigan. Don't know a lot about Davis, but I will quote Steve Smith Sr., who's now an analyst on NFL Network, who said that Corey Davis is a stud and that he is going to play at least 10 years. This guy apparently, at least according to him, is going to be a really good player. And a lot of people said that he was one of the top wide receivers in the draft. And it's really, I don't know, I'm excited to see this because the Titans have needed a weapon a wide receiver. They have not had that. They really had Delaney Walker, but they didn't really have any great receiving weapons. They had DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, who ran the ball. I think Henry was a catching back at times. I did not watch the Titans a lot last year, but I'm pretty sure that is part of their scheme. But and I actually remember one play that they had where I think it was Murray that tossed a touchdown to Delaney Walker. That was a very interesting play. But regardless, it's great to have a receiver and to have Corey Davis on your team now. It's gonna go a long way for them going forward. And that offense looks awesome. The defense still worries me a little bit, but I guess we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think there's still hope for the Titans. I think there's a lot of hope for them to win the division in the AFC South. They're the best team, I would say, right now in that division. Now, the New York Jets at number 6 picked Jamal Adams, the safety that I was talking about earlier. And people are saying that he's the safest player in the draft to pick, because people really think he's going to do well in the pros, and that's exciting to me as someone who roots for the Jets along with the Giants. The Jets are in rebuilding mode. They're not going to do a lot of winning this year, but to pick a guy up that they think that long term could do wonders for their franchise, I am all aboard. I am so down for it, and I think it's going to be exciting for that secondary to get a player like that, and people are saying that he might be a good leader too, so who knows? We'll see what happens. Alright, so then the Chargers picked number 7, Mike Williams, Clemson wide receiver. At first I thought that Mike Williams was going to be the first wide receiver taken. It turned out it was Davis, but Williams comes off being the wide receiver for Deshaun Watson, now is the wide receiver of Phillip Rivers, and that offense for Los Angeles is fantastic, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them to play. I mean, many think it's an underrated roster, and adding Mike Williams is going to add just more dynamic to that. So, again, great. Right now, I can't really say anything else, but it's a great pick. I'm saying this for a lot of these. Maybe not so much the Bears pick, but a lot of these have been. I think that they're going to improve with the pick. And oh my God, number 8, Carolina Panthers picked Stanford running back Christian McCaffrey, and this sole move helped improve the Panthers in my eyes. This is a guy that can be really reliable, very versatile, and he is going to make that franchise, or make that team rather, so much more fun to watch, because they had a very fun 2015. They dropped off big time in 2016, but I see them getting back into this. They don't have a spotlight on them anymore, and they can build on what they have, adding in Christian McCaffrey and adding in the guy they added later, and Curtis Samuel, two strong receiving and rushing threats, I think. And it's going to add so much more of a dynamic for that team. And it's going to be so much fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Next, the Bengals picked John Ross. And I was kind of confused with this pick. I was thinking that they might go offensive line. I mean, it might have been too early to do so. They may have gone linebacker, or even the secondary could have had work there. They could have gone with a running back here potentially in Cook, but they went with the wide receiver in John Ross, who I think right now is going to be a wide receiver too, opposite of AJ Green. I think that Ross is going to be an interesting guy to watch. I mean, he broke the 40-yard dash record. So obviously he is fast. I mean, he's gonna be fast hopefully on the field when he's playing the game as well. But I don't know if this was really a first round top 10 pick that you wanted to have. So I'm a little skeptical of why the Bengals picked that high. But if it works for them, then there's no you can't really say anything else, right? Next up is the Kansas City Chiefs at number 10. This pick was originally owned by Buffalo, but then and I was watching NFL Network. I saw that all of a sudden, as John Ross was like walking around down the steps and then about to hold up his Bengals jersey, but then all of a sudden, Buffalo trades out of the 10th overall pick, and Kansas City moves up. Let's look at the terms of that trade. The terms of the trade that the Buffalo trade their first round selection in exchange for flipping. The Kansas City gave them their first round selection and 2 third round selections as well as a first round selection in 2018. That's a lot of picks, especially a first round pick next year. You better hope it works out for them. If you're a Chiefs fan, hopefully it works out and Mahomes ends up playing very well. Now he's not gonna start right away. Oh, I'm sorry. I should say they ended up picking a quarterback with this pick with Patrick Mahomes. From Texas Tech, and this guy I think I know the least about in terms of skill set and who he is as a player. I don't know. You look at Alex Smith, and he's led this team. He has played well at times, but he's not gotten over the hump, and he's not getting any younger. So I think all of these are reasons why the Kansas City was just like, you know what? If we can't win with Smith, we're going to want to win with another quarterback. And they picked up their quarterback of the future in Mahomes. And I really don't think he's going to be playing this year. But there's always a chance. Something might happen to Smith and Mahomes might get his first opportunity in the Kansas City uniform. But what I've seen of Texas Tech, what I knew of Texas Tech during the college football season was that they were one of the best offenses in the country. So if Mahomes brings that, if I'm right in saying that Mahomes was probably one of the main reasons why that happened, you have to be excited about this pick for the Kansas City, and hopefully it's worth it for them. Like I said, this is a lot to give up, but I think it's gonna be fun to see what he does. And if Kansas City still can't get over the hump, he's gonna come in sooner rather than later, and it's gonna be interesting to see if he can be the first round quarterback that he suddenly became. He was not even considered a first round quarterback until probably beginning of April, I would say. He was more of like a second round pick, third round pick. And again, in a quarterback class that was not really that deep, to have that happen, it's a lot. So that's a lot to give up. But hey, Kansas City, let's see if he plays well. Let's move on to number 11 with the New Orleans Saints, and this pick follows what apparently the report was. That the Saints kind of got screwed over because they wanted Mahomes, but Kansas City traded up right in front of them, and instead they settled on the best cornerback in the draft in Marshawn Lattimore. At least, again, that's what the draft experts are saying, because this was a very deep cornerback draft, and it was actually kind of surprising seeing that the first cornerback wasn't drafted until the 11th overall pick. That's it's a little weird to me, but I mean that changed later. I believe there's like 30 something cornerbacks taken, probably more. There's a lot. But Marshawn Lattimore, that secondary continued to be terrible last year. So adding him in, hopefully it works out for them. That's really all this is. It's you're hoping it works out, but who knows if it does. But this was a great pick in my opinion because they needed this. They needed this. They needed a solid number one cornerback. He might be a number 2 next year, but this is something that they needed to get so that way, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after that, if Drew Brees still wants to play, they end up having a decent defense for once because they just had not had one for so long. So then we get to Then we get to the Cleveland Browns, who ends up trading down, and the Houston Texans, end up moving up to their spot at number 12. The draft terms for this, we have here that the Houston gave Cleveland their first round selection in 2018. So that was really the only pick. I believe that if I'm correct about this, that Cleveland, I think, owns the second round pick for next year because of the Brock Osweiler trade. I believe that's correct. I have to see. So yeah, the Texans own, or the Browns own the Texans draft in the first 2 rounds next year already. And the Texans end up drafting a quarterback, which they haven't done in a while, picking Deshaun Watson out of Clemson. And I could talk to you about Deshaun Watson. He was a treat to watch for 2 seasons, college football. He was I think my favorite college player to watch. He led Clemson to the championship game twice, and I will not forget the final drive of the last championship game this past January. And it was perfect time management, and he ends up throwing that ball, and I believe it was a tight end that caught it. And there's some speculation about if the tight end pushed off or not, but the way that he managed that team, or led that team, and the way that he managed that drive, I can't put it into words, but it was awesome. And it was so much fun. It was such an exciting championship game. I loved it very much. I loved watching Watson all these past 2 seasons. I really want him to be successful with the Houston Texans. This is a team that has a championship defense. They just need a quarterback. And he has a really good shot, I think, of starting week 1. I think he deserves that shot. A lot of people say that he has accuracy issues at times, but I guess maybe decision making problems at times. But let me tell you something. When you lead your team twice to the championship, and you have only lost you've only lost 2 times in your college career, and you keep on leading your team to winning games over and over and over again, and you carve up a great college defense in Alabama, I am shocked that he was not considered a higher prospect than he was. There are reasons, and probably good reasons, to knock him, but he was so exciting, and I think that leadership and that ability to play under pressure, under the bright lights, should be a factor in the scouting process. Because you can talk all you want about ability, you also have to talk about the mind and the personality, because those are huge factors for a team. If they could get along with the player, then that goes a long way. So I have a lot of faith in this guy. I think the Texans got a steal. I know it cost them a first-round pick, and I guess you could say it cost them a second-round pick too. getting rid of Osweiler so they can, and then getting Watson. I think they made the right choice, and I hope that Bill O'Brien was considered the quarterback's coach. I don't really think that's true anymore because he's been through so many, but I hope this works. This one I'm truly like I really want this to work out because I'm really excited about the Deshaun Watson being in the NFL now. That's gonna be so much fun. I've already spent 35 minutes on 12 picks, so I'm gonna go a little bit quicker now. It is not anything massive that happens from here on out. Arizona Cardinals pick Hassan Reddick. That was exciting to watch Philadelphia get really excited about because he was like a star at Temple University, or University of Temple, one of those. It's one or the other. But that was that was a very electric atmosphere where the Cardinals picked him, even though the fans themselves wanted him to go to the Eagles. So that was an exciting pick, and he was skyrocketing up the draft board. I was surprised that he wasn't drafted a little bit sooner, but hey, it was a fun pickup for the Cardinals, who needed another nice linebacker. Derek Barnett went to the Eagles, defensive end from Tennessee. Colts picked up Malik Hooker, safety. Ravens picked up Marlon Humphrey. The Washington Redskins picked up Jonathan Allen, who I was actually expecting to go a lot sooner, but I think there was a shoulder injury, I believe, or just injuries in general that halted some teams from picking him up. So, yeah, you never know. I mean, hopefully that's not a factor for him. Adoree Jackson was picked by the Tennessee Titans at cornerback. They needed someone in the secondary. Him and Logan Ryan could, I think, do a lot of damage for wide receivers in that AFC South. Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick up O.J. Howard, and I was both pissed, but I was also excited about it. I was pissed because I wanted the Giants to get him, but I was excited because that Buccaneers offense just continues to look awesome. I'm really pumped about that team. Garrett Bowles. I think that's what it is. Bowles, maybe. He was picked up by the Denver Broncos, the first offensive lineman picked up. It was, I believe, the latest the offensive lineman has ever been drafted, or the first offensive lineman in the draft. The latest that they've been drafted. And he actually he was interesting because he brought his baby on upstage, or on the stage, and was like lifting it up in the air over and over again like Lion King. That was a majestic moment for sure. Gerard Davis from Florida went to Detroit Lions. Charles Harris from Missouri went to Miami Dolphins. And then the Giants picked up Evan Ingram at tight end. And I don't know. I was a little upset by this pick. I wanted to go running back. I wanted to get Dalvin Cook, or I wanted to go offensive lineman. I would have been fine with Ryan Ramczyk. I would have been fine with Forrest Lamp. But we went with a tight end, and hey, if it works out for us, great. I felt like Will Tye, who's one of our tight ends he came out of Stony Brook. I would really have liked to see him continue to be our number one tight end, because he's made some great plays at tight end. I just didn't think this was a huge need for us. I felt like, although I know I just said that I wanted to pick up O.J. Howard, I would have taken O.J. Howard. I just think Evan Ingram is someone that people weren't really considering a first-round pick, but there was also a lot of excitement from other teams about him, so he might end up really playing well. I might be eating my words when it comes to when the fall comes around, but I was skeptical at best with this, or skeptical at worst, because I overall I was excited about the pick because we've got a nice tight end. It's another weapon, I think it's good. So the Giants, I said we again, did I? I went on a whole rant about saying, we shouldn't use we when talking about teams because we're just the fans of the team. We're not actually the team. But regardless, Evan Ingram, I think is going to be an interesting addition to the Giants, and if it works out, I will be really excited as a Giants fan. Then the Raiders picked Gary Conley at cornerback, and this was a huge surprise considering Conley's currently under investigation for a potential rape case. I look, I wrote an article about this, and I'm not, I, I'm not a fan of this pick. I just look, if he was falsely accused, then good for him. He gets picked first, and hopefully his name is not ruined because of these false allegations. But we don't know for sure if they are false yet. Just how we don't really know for sure if it's true or not. But I would have played it a little bit more safe than the Raiders did. I would have let him slide to the second round, and then maybe someone else would pick him up. I think it's bad PR for your first pick in the draft to be a guy that's under investigation. You have to have a lot of freaking faith in him. So, yeah, I just not a big fan of the pick. Just it's a bad. I all I could say is those allegations better be fake for the Raiders' sake and for Conley's sake, because otherwise, then you guys just glorified rape in a terrible way. And I would have I personally would have liked Conley slide out of the draft personally, but because it's just bad PR no matter what. All right, so now the Browns pick. They finally get to pick, and they pick up another one of my favorite players in college football, Jabril Peppers. He was Michigan pretty much. He was the Michigan player that you knew that was so versatile, playing all these different positions, playing he played a lot of linebacker, he played a lot of safety, he played running back. He did everything with that team, and I'm excited to see him play with the Browns because they need someone like him. They need his versatility. If they can use him in whatever way that they can, he is the perfect player to do so. Great pickup by the Browns. The Falcons traded up, and I believe it cost them a 5th round selection. They traded with Seattle. Well, actually, let's see. Okay, so it was an exchange for the 3rd and 7th round selections, as well as a flip of picks. The Seattle got the 31st pick, and Atlanta got the 26th. So they gave away a 3rd and a 7th round pick to move up, and they grabbed Takkarist McKinley, or Takkarist. Yeah, that's right, Takkarist McKinley. And McKinley's gonna be. McKinley, I think, is going to play well, based off of, again, what I've seen, but I think he's going to have a lot of personality with that team, too, because he came out on stage with a portrait of his grandmother who passed away, I don't know how long ago, yelling and saying that she told me to go into the pros, and that right after she said that, she closed her eyes and died. And he was cursing at times as well, and NFL Network forgot to bleep it out, so that was really funny. But it was passion. It was so much passion. I immediately fell in love with this guy. I think that he's going to be so much fun to watch in Atlanta just because of that moment. He is going to be just a person to remember for that moment, but I think beyond that, he's going to be seen as a leader, and he's going to be someone that's going to be great for that defense. I'm looking forward to it. And then Tre'Davious White was picked up by the Bills. Taco Charlton was picked up by the Dallas Cowboys. The Browns then picked up David Njoku at tight end. And before we move on, actually, those 3 picks by the Browns, Njoku, Peppers, and Garrett, to me, the Browns are immediately more interesting and more fun and exciting going into this season. Not that they're going to win many games. Not that they're going to make the playoffs, but they're just immediately more interesting, and they have a face of a franchise in Garrett. I'm really excited for that team to have those players. I think they're going to be huge for them going forward, and they do pick up one more that is going to be maybe big going forward. We'll talk about that again in a second. Pittsburgh Steelers selected T.J. Watt, the brother of J.J. Watt. Steelers and Texans play each other on Christmas Day. Then we have the 49ers. They traded up to get Reuben Foster, who apparently was like third on their draft board, or second on their draft, or third on their draft board, because I think they had Garrett first, and then Thomas, and then Foster. And that was a huge deal to them, because they didn't think that Foster was going to drop that far, but he did, and they not only got their second favorite player, but they got their third favorite player, and that's awesome. That's really awesome work from them. And then the Saints round out the first round with the offensive tackle Ryan Ramczyk from Wisconsin. Okay, I wasted a lot of time talking about that first round. I do apologize about that. Well, let me just run through what I liked. Cam Robinson, offensive tackle, Jacksonville Jaguars. Cam Robinson was very early, I think, last year, before the college season started. People considered him that he could potentially be a first overall pick. He did not have the season to match that. He did not have a great season. But this could be a big pickup for the Jaguars, and it could help them a lot moving forward. Dalvin Cook got picked up by the Minnesota Vikings. So a potential future franchise running back in Cook will be playing his first game against the New Orleans Saints, where Adrian Peterson is now playing. Peterson versus Cook. Should be an interesting battle. And then Joe Mixon was picked up by the Bengals. And this is one of the situations, again, that I was talking about earlier. I probably would have let him slide just because of how bad the PR would be. But the Bengals feel like he's worth it. So, there you go. Deshaun Kaiser, who many thought early on that he could have been the first quarterback taken in the draft, but now he was the fourth, and he was taken in the second round by the Browns. This was a great pickup for the Browns, because they didn't have to trade anything for that. He just fell right to them, and he could be the quarterback of the future. Who knows? That, to me, again, makes the Browns exciting and interesting heading into 2017. So good for you, Browns fans. Hopefully you guys have an exciting season. Not like amazing yet, because it probably won't be amazing, like 10 wins or anything like that. But maybe 6, maybe 5. Who knows? Anything can happen. Yeah, and Chidobe Awuzie, Colorado, picked up by the Cowboys. I love the name, but the reason why I'm including this is that was the pick read by Drew Pearson at the draft. He's a Cowboy legend who riled up the fans there during the draft. I beg you to go watch that if you haven't seen that. That was so much fun. It was really exciting. Or just funny to me. Exciting is the wrong word. Let's see. I'm just looking through right now, seeing if there's anything else. Davis Webb was drafted by the Giants at quarterback, and I was expecting a move like this, but I'm okay with it. I think it's important to look at a quarterback for the future, because Eli Manning did not play well last year, and he needs to play well this time around. Otherwise, he might be replaced by Webb. As long as it's not Geno Smith, that's all I care about. Okay. Let's see. Dante Foreman was picked up by the Texans. Very sad story about how he lost his baby. The baby was born premature, and I believe the baby died, unfortunately. But luckily there's another one coming all the way, and he now is going to be playing in the NFL. And so it's exciting stuff. Yeah, nothing from the third round. I don't know. The fourth round comes up. D.D. Westbrook is an interesting pickup for the Jaguars. And so same with Samaje Perine for the Redskins. Two very interesting picks that could do well. Oh, and I completely forgot about James Conner earlier in the third round, and right before him was C.J. Beathard from 49ers. Jesus. All right, so C.J. Beathard apparently was a quarterback that Shanahan wanted in the draft, so there you go. Somehow they got him. And then James Conner overcame lymphoma, I believe it was. I think the same disease that Eric Berry had. He overcame it, had a great season in Pittsburgh, and was drafted in the third round by the Steelers. Gets to stay at his home stadium, gets to stay at his own training facility. Oh, he did great. Yeah, D.D. Westbrook and Samaje Perine, like I said, I think were interesting picks. Same with Carl Lawson. I think all three of those are ones to keep an eye on in terms of potential stars, maybe. Who knows? Let's see. Jake Butt. I'm so excited that Jake Butt got drafted to the Broncos, to a team that needs a tight end, a solid tight end. I think that he is going to have, there's going to be a lot of excitement with that. Jerry McNichols, as someone who I consider myself, of all the college football teams, I love Boise State the most. And Jerry McNichols was so much fun to watch as a Boise State fan. I'm glad that he went to the Buccaneers. They need running back depth just in case Doug Martin does not work out, unfortunately for them. Caleb Brantley was drafted by the Cleveland Browns, defensive tackle, 6th round. He, again, was someone that I believe was being... There's a domestic issue that he had, domestic violence issue. I don't know. I don't. It's hard for me to keep track of all the crimes that these guys commit. Unfortunately, it's a shame, but I think it's not getting as much coverage because he's a 6th round pick. But again, there is some flag coming your way, and is it worth it? You'll have to see. I don't think that there is really anything fascinating that was picked up. I know the Bills picked up Nathan Peterman, I believe in the 5th round. The Bills picked him up. I think the only one that I have left to talk about is Chad Kelly, who was mystery irrelevant this year. He was drafted by the Denver Broncos, and he's going to go into that quarterback room that's already competitive. So I'm going to just say it. Watch Chad Kelly, between him, Simeon, and Lynch. Watch him win this battle. Imagine. I mean, I don't know. It probably won't happen because he's a rookie, and there's still some issues with him. Like, people don't really know for sure about him. But just it could be really exciting to see that battle play out, because I think all three of them have a pretty interesting chance at taking this whole thing. All right, or taking the quarterback job rather. Okay, so what do I have left on my docket here of what I want to talk about? All right, so real quick, I'll talk about how I see the current standings of the between the NFC and the AFC. And the AFC, it's pretty easy to know who is at the very top. And though we did not talk about them a lot, the Patriots, who only had like a few picks in this draft, I would say are still the top dog in the AFC, just because of the moves they made this offseason with Brandon Cooks, Coney Ely. They even made a move during the weekend to trade for James O'Shaughnessy from the Kansas City Chiefs. But he'll be playing with another guy that they traded for, Dwayne Allen. So they traded for 3 playmakers potentially. Now, who knows if Dwayne Allen's going to be playing well? There's some... I know that there's some issues with him potentially not giving it his all, I believe it was. But Coney Ely, if he plays like he did in Super Bowl 50, which, knowing how the Patriots have their players play, there's a good chance about that. And Brandon Cooks is just a playmaker. at wide receiver. This team just looks poised to make the Super Bowl and probably win it again, if in all honesty. But at the same time, though, there is going to be some competition. I think the Steelers are always going to be there in the background. They haven't been able to beat the Patriots in a while, but I think that they're going to be there. They're going to be haunting. Who knows? I think the Titans, I'm sorry, what am I saying? Jesus Christ. The Raiders. I looked at the Titans on my screen, and I just immediately said them. The Raiders are going to be another team, because I think their team got a little bit better on defense in this draft, but they have a really strong offense, and with Lynch in that backfield, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So that's an exciting team up on the top to the bottom, and they can give the Patriots maybe a little bit of a struggle. The Chiefs also and the Texans are two teams that have defensively played well against the Patriots, but the Patriots still edge them out. So maybe if with stronger offenses, they may be able to knock around the Patriots a little bit, but the Patriots just still seem like the number one team no matter what. Now, the reason I actually did say the Titans for a reason. I think that they have a really legit shot at winning the AFC South, but I think all four of those teams in that division could win it. I think the Titans have a better shot over all of them, but I think that all four of them have a really good shot, and I think the same could be said about the AFC West. So I think those two divisions could be very interesting to watch. Meanwhile, in the NFC, I'm going to say it's tough to really say who's the top dog, but I'm going to go out of my way and say I think the Panthers are the really good team. They added Julius Peppers at linebacker to add on with Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly. That linebacking core, I mean, Julius Peppers is older, but he still plays very well. K'Wan's Short, and Mike let me backtrack. K'Wan's Short, who they signed to an extension, and Mike Adams, who they picked up in free agency. All that has really improved their defense, and that's gonna be very interesting to watch, along with Cam Newton, along with Christian McCaffrey, and Greg Olsen, and maybe the receivers do well. Kelvin Benjamin, maybe there's injury issues, but maybe he could play well for them. And I just think, and Curtis Samuel is gonna be a great addition, maybe as a wide receiver too. This is a team that I think top to bottom has a lot of great parts of that team, and they couldn't make a run to the Super Bowl again. So I'm going to say that they're the top dog in this NFC. But the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Falcons, their division rival, all of them are not that far behind. This is every year the NFC seems to be so close. And that's why you've been seeing so many different NFC teams make it. The AFC, it's kind of the same teams almost on the daily. Or, not the daily, but you know what I mean, on the yearly. It's like, you see the Patriots, you see the Steelers, you see the Broncos, maybe a little bit of the Ravens. You had the Colts, but it was the same quarterback that led them there in Peyton Manning. I mean, he's not in the league anymore. But still, this NFC is constantly changing, and I think saying that Panthers are the number one team in that league is definitely not certain, but it's not crazy either. So I will stand by that statement. All right, I've been talking for an hour. I'm gonna take a break now. And by the way, some sleeper teams in the NFC, the Buccaneers, I think have a really good shot at playing well. I think the Vikings may or may not play well. I think there's still a lot of questions. I think both the NFC South and the NFC East are two very deep divisions that anything can happen with those divisions. It might be hard for the Saints. It might be a little hard for the Eagles. But even they, as well as any other team in those divisions, I think could win their divisions. Maybe even go to the Super Bowl. Who knows? But It's all gonna be for naught. They can't beat the Patriots once they get to Minnesota to play in Super Bowl 52. So who knows? And I'm not trying to guarantee the Patriots make it Super Bowl 52. It just seems like that's the trajectory. I hope I'm wrong. I love seeing new things happen. But anyways, I'm gonna sign off now. Guys, thank you so much for watching or listening. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Be good to one another, be kind to one another, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast. Bye-bye.